these things happen to you, or if they happen to people you know or your relatives, very important that they know that this is of concern to us. Because, by the way, they do hear all the time from the business people who want to do business with the government of Vietnam or the government of China. Those guys are in the office a lot. But what you have is, in many cases, you're from the congressman's district, senator's state, and things have happened to you, or they've happened to people you know that you care about. So those are our issues. That's what we're going to try to accomplish today. Thank you all for being here. Yes.
I'm quite active on Facebook, especially on Ambassador Osius, US Ambassador.
Okay.
Is it appropriate to bring this point up on Facebook, in social media, and on Twitch after the day?
Well, if you do it in a nice way.
Yeah. It's okay, right?
Yeah.
Public information.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I'm active on this page, and I have thought of a lot of points. And
yeah.
if it's appropriate, I'll bring this up too.
it is. I mean, remember that even if somebody, I worked for the State Department for 7 years for my sins, and even when somebody is, even if they're good in their heart on these issues, they're, you know, they have to respond, oh, we're engaging with the government of Vietnam and we're making progress and so forth. I tried never to say those things when they weren't true, and I managed never to say the word Ho Chi Minh City or Myanmar the whole time I worked, or Zaire for that matter, the whole time I worked in the State Department. But it was hard. As citizens you can, but don't expect that you're going to get an enthusiastic response. Yes. Thank you.
And the next speaker will be from Thailand. Actually, he came out of Vietnam, a very young person who's now with our team in Bangkok. And his name is Viet Nguyen. Some of you might have met him in East Timor before in Thailand. So, yes.
Can I just have a quick announcement? Virginia delegation needs to leave. We have an appointment at 11, so we need you back here. So anybody with Virginia? Sorry.
Now will be Viet Nguyen. Mời Việt. Có thấy Việt chưa? Việt là một thanh niên trẻ ở Việt Nam, đã một người Công giáo rất quan tâm đến vấn đề nhân quyền, và trong hơn 1 năm qua đã sang Thái Lan để hợp tác với lại cái nhóm của BPS đến Thái Lan. Hiện nay có 16 người ở bên đó. Mời Việt. Việt có thể nói tiếng Anh hoặc tiếng Việt cũng được. Việt bật đèn lên, không, bên này rất là tối, không thấy Việt đâu hết. Bởi bên Thái Lan giờ là ban đêm mà.
Đèn trước lên Việt. There we go. We'd like to see the handsome man.
Rồi có nghe được Việt nói không? Yes. Chắc phải để cái mic cắm vào đó. Where's the mic?
Cái mic là vô thẳng đi.
Hello, mọi người nghe được chưa? Nghe được rồi.
Nói Việt quay cái đèn ra đằng trước đó.
Alo. Nghe được rồi Việt ơi. Ok. Xin chào tất cả mọi người. Tôi tên là Việt Nguyễn, hiện giờ đang làm cho BSOS Bangkok. Công việc của tôi hiện tại là làm việc trong bộ phận phát triển hậu dân sự của BSOS Bangkok. Một chút nữa đây thì anh tôi không phần là giám đốc của văn BSOS Bangkok sẽ cho mặt rõ hơn về các cái công việc của văn phòng. Thì
trước đây thì tôi sẽ xin giới thiệu cho mọi người biết một chút qua về công việc của bộ phận phát triển soạn dân sự mà hiện giờ tôi đang làm một phần của bộ phận đó. Bộ phận soạn dân sự, phát triển soạn dân sự của chúng tôi hiện giờ đang tập trung vào khá là nhiều lĩnh vực khác nhau. Tuy nhiên cái công việc quan trọng nhất mà chúng tôi đang chú trọng hiện tại đó là giúp đỡ xây dựng các cái cộng đồng của Việt Nam ở trong nước, đặc biệt là các cộng đồng của các pháp dân thiểu số tại khu vực cao nguyên trung phần hoặc là khu vực miền núi phía Bắc, cũng như là các cái khu vực ở bằng sông Cửu Long. Như mọi người đã biết, đó là BPSOS ở Thái Lan có nhiệm vụ đó là giúp đỡ những người tị nạn ở Việt Nam đang phải xin tị nạn ở Bangkok, cho nên chúng tôi nhận thấy rằng đó là nếu chúng ta không giúp đỡ những cái cộng đồng người Việt Nam ở trong nước thì cái làn sóng tị nạn sẽ rất là khó để có thể chấm dứt được. Cho nên chúng tôi đã quyết định đó là đầu tư giúp đỡ những cái cộng đồng người sắc dân thiểu số đang bị đàn áp về mặt tự do tôn giáo ở trong nước, như những cộng đồng người Mông Thanh Nha, người Đồng Mông và những cái cộng đồng người Việt Nam theo đạo Cao Đài, Hòa Hảo hoặc là người con nữa. Thì công việc phát triển cộng đồng của chúng tôi tập trung chủ yếu vào đó là giúp đỡ các cộng đồng xây dựng tổ chức thật là chặt chẽ, biết hiểu được cái quyền của mình để làm thế nào đó bảo vệ cái quyền tự do tôn giáo cũng như là cái quyền của người bản địa của chính mình, chống lại những cái sự đàn áp bắt bớ vô lý của chính quyền địa phương. Đối với công việc tiếp theo đó là chúng tôi tập trung vào đó là bảo vệ nhân quyền cho người Việt Nam cũng như là thúc đẩy dân chủ tại đất nước Việt Nam. Để bảo vệ nhân quyền thì chúng tôi tập trung vào giúp đỡ xây dựng các tổ chức xã hội dân sự, bởi vì chúng tôi tin rằng nếu không có các cái tổ chức xã hội dân sự mạnh mẽ thì rất là khó để có thể bảo vệ nhân quyền. Trong khi trên thực tế thì các cái tổ chức xã hội dân sự ở Việt Nam hiện tại rất là manh nha và hoạt động vẫn còn chưa thực sự hiệu quả, cho nên chúng tôi cố gắng giúp đỡ bất cứ những tổ chức xã hội dân sự nào ở Việt Nam có nhu cầu thì chúng tôi đều giúp đỡ để giúp họ cải thiện cái năng lực hoạt động của mình trong cái vấn đề bảo vệ nhân quyền. Trong cái vấn đề thúc đẩy dân chủ cũng vậy, vì VPSOS có chủ trương đó là một đất nước không thể nào mà có dân chủ nếu xã hội dân sự ở đất nước đó không phát triển, cho nên chúng tôi cũng tập trung vào phát triển nội lực của các tổ chức xã hội dân sự và giúp đỡ xây dựng càng nhiều tổ chức xã hội dân sự càng tốt, để từ đó làm tiền đề xây dựng, thúc đẩy và ép buộc chính quyền Việt Nam phải dân chủ hóa đất nước. Ngoài ra trong cái vấn đề này thì chúng tôi cũng hoạt động tập trung vào xây dựng những cái mạng lưới giúp đỡ các cái tổ chức ở trong nước liên kết với các tổ chức ở nước ngoài theo một cái công thức của tiến sĩ Thắng, đó là công thức kết nghĩa. Chúng tôi cố gắng tìm những cái tổ chức ở trong nước và các cái cộng đồng tổ chức ở nước ngoài và giúp họ liên kết với nhau, kinh nghiệm với nhau để giúp đỡ các tổ chức trong nước có được cái bệ đỡ và từ đó phát triển cái năng lực của họ. Thì chúng tôi tin rằng một khi mà chúng ta có một cái nền xã hội dân sự ở trong nước phát triển thì cái việc đòi hỏi dân chủ nó sẽ dễ dàng hơn rất nhiều. Cuối cùng cái công việc chính nữa mà nhóm chúng tôi đang làm ở bên Bangkok đó là giúp đỡ cho cái việc hỗ trợ khẩn cấp cho những người hoạt động ở Việt Nam mỗi khi họ bị đàn áp. Ví dụ như những người bị đánh đập hoặc những người bị bắt bớ, bỏ tù, bị đe dọa, cướp tài sản, thì nhóm chúng tôi có liên hệ với các tổ chức quốc tế và thực hiện những cái đơn để xin cấp những cái tài trợ khẩn cấp cho những nhà hoạt động Việt Nam để giúp đỡ họ phần nào trong cái công cuộc đấu tranh của họ, cũng như là xóa dịu những cái mất mát của họ là họ phải chịu đựng trong cái cuộc hành trình đấu tranh của họ. Thì đó là những cái công việc chính mà bộ phận xã hội phát triển xã hội dân sự do BPSOS ở Bangkok đang thực hiện. Sau đây thì xin mời anh John là giám đốc khu vực sẽ giới thiệu rộng hơn.
No one waiting for John to join us. Some of you might have known him already. That's John Coughlin. And he used to be with Amnesty International before he joined us. He was a researcher on specializing on Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. John, oh, here he is. Hi, John.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Very well.
So hi everyone.
Hello.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Just like Viet, I'm talking to you from Bangkok. So I'm here working in the same office as Viet, although we're both speaking from home this evening because it's evening here. So as Dr. Tang said, my name is John Coughlin. I recently joined the Bangkok office of BPSOS as regional director. So I'm going to speak just to give an idea about some of our work here in Bangkok, because I guess a lot of people might be familiar with the operations in the US, but less familiar with our work in the region. So Viet has already spoken about our work building and supporting civil society in Vietnam and advocating on human rights issues in the country. So that's one of two components that the office works on, the Thailand office, Bangkok office that is. And I'm going to speak about the other office, or sorry, the other component of our work. But before I do that, which is working on to support asylum seekers and refugees here. But before I do that, I just wanted to point out that there's the two areas of work are distinct in many ways, but there's a large overlap too. And also the underlying core values of our work are the same. Our work supporting civil society in Vietnam and our work supporting asylum seekers here in Thailand are both based on the values of liberty and dignity. So supporting people to be able to claim their own personal freedom and to live in dignity. These are the core values that run through all of our work. They're the core values of the organization writ large, and it runs through all of the work that we do, whether the work is in supporting people in Vietnam, in Thailand, or in a third country. So turning to the work that we actually do on asylum seekers and refugees. The work is done under the name of the Center for Asylum Protection, which or CAP, as the acronym goes. So Thailand itself is not a signatory to the UN Convention on Refugees. But UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, here, it does recognize refugees. And in some cases, it helps them resettle elsewhere, so like third countries, including in the US. Our services, our legal services in CAP focus on providing assistance at the appeal level. So what does that mean in practice? It means that where people have already had their initial asylum applications rejected by UNHCR, we help them to appeal those decisions in the hope that the decision can be overturned and their status as asylum seekers can be recognized. So the main reason that we work at this point in the procedure rather than earlier in the procedure was mostly due to needs. We identified that was the area of need, biggest need in Thailand in the asylum process. And it's a significant point is that while we previously, as you know, BPSOS grew out of the refugee crisis in Vietnam in the late 70s and into the 80s. The organization was started in 1980. And for most of the 37 years of the organization's lifetime, we've worked only with asylum seekers coming from Vietnam. But more recently, we've expanded the services to include to provide services to people coming from all countries. So whoever comes to Thailand seeking asylum or seeking their claims to be registered and by UNHCR. So every country, and Vietnam remains the second biggest country of origin in terms of our clients that we work with, but it's been overtaken by Pakistan, where there's a much greater inflow of asylum seekers from Pakistan here. But we also have people from Cambodia and other countries in the region, as well as countries much further removed, such as Somalia and Ethiopia. So in addition to legal services, legal support to asylum seekers and refugees, we also assist communities with some livelihood projects. And again, this returns me to the core values of liberty and dignity. So helping people here who are mostly in a very difficult situation to be able to support themselves and to live in the dignity that everybody deserves. So in this respect, we have put a number of women asylum seekers through vocational training programs where they've learned things like hairdressing and learning how to do nails and this kind of thing. And we're also hoping to help these women find jobs. And we've also founded a small company called Chamalin, that's CHAMALIIN, which sells goods like mostly t-shirts, small pieces of art and handicrafts that are made, designed and produced here by asylum seekers. And it's just a way for people to pursue projects that they have skills in and to get streams of income here so they can live with the dignity that everybody is invested with. And so if you're interested in seeing any of the products that Chamberlain sells, you can visit our Facebook page where you can see them. Of course, the money goes all directly to the people who make the products themselves. So I don't want to go and speak for too long. I think that's very much a broad overview of our work in the area of asylum seekers and refugees. So I hope it helps to give some idea anyway of what we're doing here.
Thank you, John. I'd like to add that there's a very direct connection between our legal protection for asylum seekers or refugees in Thailand and our advocacy work here, because there are many of these leaders from the different persecuted communities who are now seeking asylum in Thailand. Rất nhiều người thuộc các cộng đồng bị đàn áp, rất nhiều nhà tranh đấu hiện nay đang lánh nạn ở Thái Lan, nên chúng tôi bảo vệ cho họ, and so we protect them. But not only that, we also work with them to reach back home to their hometowns, home villages inside Vietnam, to train their community members on basic human rights, on how to report incidents of violations. Chúng tôi cùng với họ huấn luyện những cái người mà ở trong nước mà là cộng đồng của họ trước đây. Thành ra đó là lý do mà tôi có rất nhiều hồ sơ ở khắp đất nước Việt Nam, ở những cái nơi mà không có mấy ai đến được hết, mà chúng tôi cũng có được là qua cỡ khoảng 1.000 đồng bào người Việt đang tị nạn ở Thái Lan. So there are now about 1,000 Vietnamese seekers asylum in Thailand, and through them they serve as the bridge for us to reach back into Vietnam, into even very remote areas inside Vietnam. That's how we have been able to collect information about human rights abuses in Vietnam. Thank you. And that's how we could compile all this list of government officials involved implicated in human rights violations. So the two operations are hand in hand. Yes?
I'm just curious, if the communists know that you're doing that, would they try to stop you?
They know that. We have been doing this for the past, since 2008. So for the past 7 years, so they know it.
They know, but they're not arresting people?
They might try to block us, but we have many ways to overcome that.
Let me respond to you. They have identified DPSS and Dr. Tang himself is like the
Terrorists?
Not terrorists. They have their own list.
But
We have their list. They have our list.
on that list. Yeah.
Now the next person will be from Vietnam. So please spend time, and I think they'll speak in English, listening to these very brave human rights defenders and civil society advocates from Vietnam. Thank you. Và đây là cô Nguyễn Trang Nhung. This is Nguyễn Trang Nhung. She is with the Association for the Support of Victims of Torture, newly established organization in Vietnam. Of course, all these civil society organizations are not recognized by the Vietnamese government. They're outlawed. However, they still function, they're still working. And some of you might have heard of the name of Chang Yung because she ran for the National Assembly as an independent candidate before, of course. There's no way for her to win the election, but she tested the system. Thank you. Cô Chang Yung trước đây là cũng đã tranh cử độc lập trong cái kỳ vừa rồi. Dĩ nhiên là không thể lọt qua được bởi vì Việt Nam không có bầu cử tự do, nhưng đây là một cái hành động để mà thử nghiệm một phép thử. Xin mời Chang Yung.
Chào tất cả quý vị. Tôi là Nguyễn Trang Nhung, thành viên của Hội hỗ trợ nạn nhân bạo hành. Tên tiếng Anh là The Association for Support of Victims of Torture. Hội hỗ trợ nạn nhân bạo hành là một tổ chức xã hội dân sự ra đời vào ngày 7 tháng 11 năm 2016 với hai thành viên trong ban điều hành, gồm có bác sĩ Đinh Đức Long là bác sĩ tại Bệnh viện Đa khoa Bưu điện Sài Gòn, và tôi là một người hoạt động xã hội. Sứ mệnh của Hội hỗ trợ nạn nhân bạo hành là hỗ trợ cho các nạn nhân bị chính quyền bạo hành vì những hoạt động đấu tranh ôn hòa của họ cho công bằng và lẽ phải, vì một Việt Nam dân chủ và văn minh. Với sứ mệnh và sự thành lập của Hội hỗ trợ nạn nhân bạo hành đặt trên cơ sở pháp lý, có cơ sở pháp lý là pháp luật quốc tế và pháp luật Việt Nam. Cụ thể là điều 5 Tuyên ngôn phổ quát về nhân quyền năm 1948. Không ai có thể bị tra tấn hay bị những hình phạt hoặc đối xử tàn ác, vô nhân đạo làm hạ thấp nhân phẩm. Bên cạnh đó là điều 20 Hiến pháp Việt Nam 2013. Mọi người có quyền bất khả xâm phạm về thân thể, được pháp luật bảo hộ về sức khỏe, danh dự và nhân phẩm, không bị tra tấn, bạo lực, truy bức, nhục hình hay bất cứ hình thức đối xử nào khác xâm phạm thân thể, sức khỏe, xúc phạm danh dự, nhân phẩm. Và ngoài ra là Công ước chống tra tấn mà Việt Nam đã tham gia làm thành viên vào năm 2015. Các phương diện mà Hội hỗ trợ cho nạn nhân bạo hành bao gồm phương diện tài chính, phương diện pháp lý, phương diện y tế và một số phương diện khác. Đến nay, Hội hỗ trợ nạn nhân bạo hành đã hỗ trợ cho các nạn nhân sau. Thứ nhất là anh Lã Việt Dũng, người hoạt động xã hội tại Hà Nội. Thứ hai là chị Nguyễn Ngọc Như Quỳnh, người hoạt động xã hội tại Nha Trang. Thứ ba là anh Nguyễn Công Huân, người hoạt động xã hội tại Nghệ An. Thứ tư là anh Nguyễn Hồ Nhật Thành, người hoạt động xã hội tại Sài Gòn. Thứ năm là bà Cấn Thị Thêu, người đứng đầu tập thể Dân oan Dương Nội, đấu tranh cho các quyền và lợi ích hợp pháp của mình trong tranh chấp về đất đai. Và thứ sáu là chị Lê Mỹ Hạnh, một người hoạt động xã hội tại Hà Nội. Trong thời gian tới, chúng tôi sẽ tiếp tục sứ mệnh của mình là hỗ trợ cho các nạn nhân bị chính quyền bạo hành vì những hoạt động đấu tranh ôn hòa của họ cho một Việt Nam dân chủ và văn minh. Và qua đây, chúng tôi cũng thể hiện mong muốn rằng sẽ nhận được sự quan tâm theo dõi của quý vị để chúng tôi có thêm động lực để thực hiện sứ mệnh của mình một cách tốt nhất. Xin hết và xin cảm ơn.
Vâng, cảm ơn Trang Nhung. Ở đây chị Trang Nhung có nhắc tới bác sĩ Đinh Đức Long, có thể nhiều người không nhớ đâu, nhưng mà bác sĩ Đinh Đức Long là cái người mà vẫn thường xuyên khám sức khỏe cho thương phế binh Việt Nam Cộng Hòa tại dòng Trung Quốc Thế, Sài Gòn. Cảm ơn Trang Nhung. Vâng, bây giờ xin mời người kế tiếp có phải là Vũ Quốc Ngữ không ạ? Vũ Quốc Ngữ là thuộc cái tổ chức gọi là Defend the Defenders.
Anh dạy thắng này.
Nghe rất rõ.
Và xin kính chào quý vị. Tôi là Vũ Quốc Ngữ ở Hà Nội, là tổng giám đốc của người bảo vệ nhân quyền, tiếng Anh là Defend the Defenders. Thì đây là một tổ chức được thành lập năm 2012, xin lỗi, năm 2012 do anh Phạm Bá Hải là cựu từ viên Lương Tâm, anh ấy lập ra cái tổ chức này. Và tổ chức này có địa chỉ tại Vietnam Human Rights Defenders.net. Vietnam Human Rights Defenders.net. Nhiệm vụ của chúng tôi là chúng tôi cố gắng là báo cáo lại tất cả những cái vụ vi phạm nhân quyền nghiêm trọng ở Việt Nam. Và đối tượng của chúng tôi là những nhà bất đồng chính kiến, những người hoạt động nhân quyền, người hoạt động xã hội và những blogger độc lập. Và chúng tôi có bản tin hàng ngày và bản tin hàng tuần, và cũng có báo cáo tổng kết năm, báo cáo trong từng năm, và thậm chí là có báo cáo trong 6 tháng, đấy nhưng mà điều kiện cho phép. Và thế chúng tôi là có hợp tác với nhiều tổ chức quốc tế, chẳng hạn như là Ân xá quốc tế, hoặc là tổ chức người theo dõi nhân quyền là Human Rights Watch, hoặc là bên phóng viên không biên giới, rồi bên Civil Rights Defenders của Thụy Điển, hoặc là tổ chức Frontline Defenders của bên Ireland. Thì chúng tôi là một trong những cái tổ chức gần như là hãng tin đưa những tin rất kịp thời về những vi phạm nhân quyền ở Việt Nam một cách nhanh nhất, và thậm chí là chúng tôi có thể nhanh hơn cả Reuters và một số hãng tin khác, bởi vì là hãng tin khác thường thường họ ít để ý đến những cái tin tức về nhân quyền. Chẳng hạn như Reuters là họ chỉ có để chú trọng đến tin tức kinh tế. Thì đó là những cái công việc của chúng tôi. Ngoài ra chúng tôi là ngoài cái việc là viết báo cáo bằng tiếng Anh và tiếng Việt để đưa lên website của chúng tôi còn có hỗ trợ những người đấu tranh trong nước bằng cách là hợp tác với các tổ chức quốc tế để tổ chức những cái buổi đào tạo huấn luyện về an ninh mạng, hoặc là về cái kỹ năng báo chí, nghiệp vụ báo chí chẳng hạn. Chúng tôi đã tổ chức một số khóa huấn luyện như thế, và cũng cố gắng hợp tác với tổ chức nhiều những buổi như thế hơn để cho anh chị em đấu tranh trong nước. Ngoài ra chúng tôi cũng giúp đỡ những người hoạt động bị tấn công, bị đàn áp bằng cách là kết nối họ với các tổ chức quốc tế, chẳng hạn như bên EU hoặc là bên các tổ chức, các đại sứ quán họ muốn gặp mặt những cái nạn nhân của bạo hành, của cảnh sát, của lực lượng an ninh Việt Nam, thì chúng tôi kết nối với họ và kết nối giữa hai bên với nhau. Và chúng tôi cũng có hỗ trợ một số anh chị em trong việc coi như là tìm những cái hỗ trợ về tài chính của tổ chức nước ngoài để trang trải cho những cái chi phí về thuốc men hoặc là chi phí khám bệnh sau khi bị đánh. Có một số trường hợp là anh chị em ở trong nước mà bị đánh đập, và chúng tôi tìm cách là giúp đỡ họ nhận những cái khoản hỗ trợ tài chính từ một số tổ chức quốc tế, đặc biệt là bên Frontline Defenders của Ireland. Đó, cho nên đó là những cái hoạt động chính của Defenders. Và chúng tôi mong rằng là các quý vị quý vị ở nước ngoài, quý vị hãy hỗ trợ chúng tôi bằng cách phổ biến những bản tin của chúng tôi lên rộng rãi trên phương tiện thông tin đại chúng. Và đặc biệt là các quý vị là thấy dễ dàng hơn, bởi vì là những bản tin của chúng tôi là những bản tin được viết bằng tiếng Anh, tất nhiên nó không được chuẩn lắm, chúng tôi không phải người tiếng Anh học bằng để sử dụng tiếng Anh thành thạo lắm, cho nên là cũng có những đôi chỗ nó không được chuẩn nhưng mà chúng tôi cố gắng là làm việc cho nó truyền tải những cái nội dung cho nó chính xác nhất. Còn có thể trình độ nó chưa được đáp ứng thì xin mọi người cũng xin những ai mà có trình độ khả năng cao hơn, thấy những cái sai sót của chúng tôi chẳng hạn, hoặc là những cái nó chưa được hoàn thiện thì xin mời mọi người hãy góp ý chúng tôi, và để cho chúng tôi được sửa lại, và chúng tôi sẽ có những bản tin nó hoàn thiện hơn đối với bạn quốc tế. Xin cảm ơn ạ.
Vâng, cảm ơn người kế tiếp là cũng nhiều người đấy có lẽ cũng biết rồi, đó là Huỳnh Thục Vi, là bên Hội Phụ nữ Nhân quyền Việt Nam. Xin mời Huỳnh Thục Vi.
Alo, anh Thắng thấy em chưa ạ?
Không thấy Huỳnh Thục Vi nhưng mà nghe được tiếng.
Dạ.
Rồi, thấy rồi.
Dạ. Huỳnh Thục Vi xin kính chào tất cả các cô chú bác anh chị em. Thục Vi rất là vui mừng có được cơ hội nói chuyện với cô chú bác anh chị em trong ngày hôm nay. Chào anh Thắng.
Ivy. Vâng, chào Thục Vi, ở đây nhiều người vỗ tay này. Vâng, xin mời Vi.
Dạ.
Huỳnh Thục Vi is with Vietnamese Women for Human Rights. Mời Thục Vi.
Dạ. Thưa cô chú bác anh chị em, như quý vị đã biết thì hiện tại Thục Vi là chủ tịch của Hội Phụ nữ Nhân quyền Việt Nam. Hội Phụ nữ Nhân quyền Việt Nam được thành lập vào cuối năm 2013, và ngay sau khi ra đời thì hội đã gánh chịu nhiều trấn áp của chính quyền cộng sản Việt Nam. Hơn nữa, hội đã trải qua những cái giai đoạn rất là khó khăn về nội bộ do thiếu kiến thức làm việc hội nhóm và thiếu cái kinh nghiệm làm việc chung ạ. Nhưng mà đến bây giờ, bất chấp những cái trở ngại khó khăn không thể tránh khỏi thì Hội Phụ nữ Nhân quyền Việt Nam đã đứng vững và phát triển được cho đến hôm nay. Có thể nhiều quý cô chú bác anh chị em họ tự hỏi là nghi hoặc là từ lâu nay tôi có nghe nói gì đến Hội Phụ nữ Nhân quyền Việt Nam đâu, sau cô Thục lại nói là vẫn đứng vững được và phát triển được cho đến hôm nay. Thì kính thưa cô chú bác anh chị em, thay cho những cái sinh hoạt tạo tên tuổi một cách rầm rộ trên truyền thông nhưng cũng thu hút nhiều cái đàn áp từ chính quyền, thì chị em chúng tôi đã có nhận thức mới, đã đổi hướng hành động, đã đổi hướng sinh hoạt là bằng cách hoạt động thận trọng hơn, bền vững hơn, nhưng mà thầm lặng hơn ạ. Chúng tôi đã thay đổi nhân sự nhiều và thay đổi cả cơ cấu tổ chức hội để phù hợp với nhận thức mới đó của chị em trong hội. Hội hiện tại đã có người điều hành mới, và tôi không biết là bây giờ tôi có được phép nói tên chị ra ở đây hay không, nhưng mà chị là một người tôi rất là yêu quý, và chị làm việc rất là năng nổ, rất là tích cực. Tôi rất mừng vì Hội Phụ nữ Nhân quyền Việt Nam đã vượt qua những khó khăn và có được một người lãnh đạo, một người điều hành mới rất là tốt như chị. Hiện tại thì chúng tôi đã có ngân quỹ riêng ổn định, có một thành viên làm việc toàn thời được trả lương hàng tháng, và sắp tới đây thì chúng tôi có ý định là tuyển dụng thêm một nhân viên làm việc toàn thời mới, thêm một nhân viên nữa đó ạ, để mà gánh vác cái công việc của hội này nhiều hơn. Công việc của chúng tôi là sát cánh với các phụ nữ dân oan, với những người nữ hoạt động chính kiến, những người bảo vệ nhân quyền mà là nữ giới, những cộng đồng bị ngược đãi như cộng đồng người thượng ở Tây Nguyên, khối nhân sinh đạo Cao Đài, nhóm ân đàn đại đạo. Chúng tôi không chỉ hỗ trợ phương tiện làm việc, trợ giúp nhân đạo, mà còn huấn luyện các chị em trong các cộng đồng đó về nhân quyền, về công tác bảo vệ nhân quyền. Chúng tôi còn viết báo cáo vi phạm nhân quyền, làm hồ sơ xin trợ cấp cho những trường hợp tù nhân lương tâm, hoặc là những trường hợp bị trấn áp, bị tra tấn mà cần sự trợ giúp khẩn cấp. Kính thưa quý cô chú bác anh chị em, xã hội dân sự là một cái gai trong mắt chính quyền cộng sản Việt Nam. Xã hội dân sự phát triển mạnh mẽ và bền vững là điều kiện tiên quyết để giải thể chế độ độc tài và xây dựng dân chủ. Bởi vậy,
chị em chúng tôi đang từng bước học hỏi để cố gắng phát triển tổ chức của mình, đưa tiếng nói của mình ra cộng đồng xã hội yên sự ASEAN cũng như cộng đồng xã hội yên sự quốc tế. Chúng tôi đã và đang nỗ lực để đi những bước thật là chậm rãi nhưng mà vững chắc trong cái nỗ lực hỗ trợ các phụ nữ trong các gia đình tù nhân lương tâm, trong các cộng đồng bị ngược đãi vì lý do tôn giáo và vì lý do chính kiến. Trên con đường đầy chông gai đó, trước sự đàn áp không ngừng của chính quyền cộng sản Việt Nam, Thục Vi cũng như các chị em của mình rất cần sự ủng hộ của quý cô chú bác anh chị. Quý cô chú bác anh chị em, sau một thời gian dò dẫm trong nhận thức và niềm tin của mình, tôi nhận ra rằng cái cuộc đấu tranh này không thể thành công nếu mà chúng ta không tạo dựng được một cái thế trong ngoài kết hợp. Quốc nội và hải ngoại phải phối hợp ăn ý với nhau và tận dụng hết các lợi thế của đôi bên thì mới có thể đối mặt được với chế độ độc tài, và cuộc đấu tranh cho dân chủ, nhân quyền của chúng ta mới sớm ngày thành công. Và tôi nghĩ là công thức nhóm ý nghĩa theo sáng tạo của tiến sĩ Bùi Thắng rất là tốt, và nó đã và đang được ứng dụng trong Hội Phụ nữ Nhân quyền Việt Nam của chúng tôi. Thưa quý cô chú bác anh chị em, quý vị là những người có được cái lợi thế là con dân của một quốc gia tự do dân chủ, có những cái lợi thế nữa về năng lực sẵn có vì được đào tạo trong một cái nền giáo dục tối ưu sở tại. Vì vậy nếu quý vị kết nghĩa với chúng tôi, quý vị giúp đỡ chúng tôi theo cách là hai bên kết nghĩa với nhau để hỗ trợ theo cái công thức nhóm kết nghĩa mà Thục Vi vừa nói ở trên, thì sự phát triển của những hội nhóm trong nước rất là khả quan, và đặc biệt là đối với Hội Phụ nữ Nhân quyền Việt Nam. Nếu chúng tôi giành được sự ủng hộ của quý vị bằng công thức nhóm kết nghĩa thì công việc của chúng tôi sẽ thuận tiện, sẽ phát triển thành công nhiều hơn nữa. Và nếu quý cô chú bác anh chị em nào muốn kết nghĩa với Hội Phụ nữ Nhân quyền Việt Nam thì chúng tôi xin liên lạc với chị Tuyết Đinh. Chị Tuyết Đinh là thành viên đại diện của chúng tôi tại Hoa Kỳ. Xin quý vị tin cậy và liên lạc với chị ấy để hỗ trợ cho Hội Phụ nữ Nhân quyền ở trong nước của chúng tôi. Chúng tôi tin rằng sự phối hợp chặt chẽ trong ngoài đó sẽ giúp chúng ta có được một cái tương lai cho quê hương Việt Nam ngày càng tốt đẹp hơn. Xin đa tạ quý vị về những cái nỗ lực không mệt mỏi của quý vị trong nhiều năm qua cho một Việt Nam tốt đẹp hơn. Xin cảm ơn quý vị. Xin cảm ơn Christy.
The next one will be Nguyễn Bắc Chuyển, who represents several organizations. One is the Vietnamese Multi-Faith Roundtable I just mentioned. He also represents the Association of Former Political and Religious Prisoners. And he is also a member of the independent group of Hòa Hảo Buddhists. So mời Chuyển, nhưng mà Chuyển ngắn gọn nhé, bởi mình sắp hết giờ đó. Xin mời Chuyển. And Mr. Nguyễn Bắc Chuyển is an activist in Vietnam and a former political prisoner himself.
Xin anh Thắng có nghe được em nói không ạ?
Nghe được rõ.
Dạ. Thưa quý vị, tôi là Nguyễn Bắc Chuyển, đang sinh sống tại Sài Gòn, Việt Nam. Tôi là một cựu tù nhân lương tâm, cũng là một tín đồ Phật giáo Hòa Hảo. Sau khi tôi kết hôn với vợ tôi là một người tín đồ Phật giáo Hòa Hảo vào năm 2014. Trước đó thì tôi đã có cái sự kết nối với những người tín đồ Phật giáo Hòa Hảo ở trong tù. Và sau khi ra tù 2015 thì chúng tôi đã kết nối với nhau. Và như là một cái duyên, chúng tôi đã làm việc với nhau trong suốt gần 7 năm qua. Từ tháng 4 năm 2017 cho đến nay có khoảng 6 tín đồ Phật giáo Hòa Hảo bị bắt, và trường hợp đặc biệt là của anh Nguyễn Hữu Tấn đã bị chết trong đồn công an tỉnh Vĩnh Long trong vòng 24 tiếng đồng hồ sau khi bị bắt giữ. Cái chết của anh làm cho các tín đồ Phật giáo Hòa Hảo sửng sốt, và cả một cái cộng đồng tôn giáo hết sức là đau buồn, vì một cái chết nó quá bất ngờ và nó giống như một sự bất tử ở trong đồn công an, mà cho tới nay cái sự điều tra nó vẫn chưa minh bạch. Gia đình của anh Nguyễn Hữu Tấn thì không đồng ý với cái kết luận của cơ quan cảnh sát điều tra tỉnh Vĩnh Long về việc cho rằng anh Tấn đã dùng dao cọc giấy và tự cắt vào cổ mình. Cha của anh Nguyễn Hữu Tấn đã thấy được 2 lần video clip do công an chiếu cho gia đình xem, thì trong 2 lần như vậy có sự khác biệt. Từ tháng 4 cho đến nay thì ngoài anh Nguyễn Hữu Tấn bị bắt và chết trong đồn công an thì còn có ông Vương Văn Thả bị bắt, anh Trương Tấn An bị bắt. Mới đây, cách đây 2 ngày, gia đình ông Bùi Văn Trung có một đạo tràng ở tại An Phú, An Giang cũng đã bị bắt. Lần này là lần thứ 2 ông Bùi Văn Trung bị bắt cùng với người con là Bùi Văn Thâm. Trước đây anh Bùi Văn Thâm bị kết án 30 tháng tù giam, ông Trung bị kết án 4 năm tù giam, và bây giờ họ bị bắt lần thứ 2. Trong vòng chỉ gần 2 tháng thôi mà 6 tín đồ giáo Hòa Hảo bị bắt và người bị chết trong đồn công an, quý vị. Tôi mong muốn hy vọng rằng các tín đồ Phật giáo Hòa Hảo ở tại Hoa Kỳ có thể kết nối lại với nhau, hỗ trợ cho các tín đồ Phật giáo Hòa Hảo trong nước, và đặc biệt là làm việc rất là chặt chẽ với ông Alan Lowenthal ở quận Cam, là dân biểu ở quận Cam, để mà vận động buộc nhà cầm quyền Cộng sản Việt Nam phải tôn trọng nhân quyền ở tại Việt Nam, tôn trọng quyền tự do tôn giáo của người tín đồ Phật giáo Hòa Hảo và những cái cộng đồng tôn giáo khác. Thưa quý vị, tất cả những cộng đồng tôn giáo đều bị sự đàn áp rất là khắc nghiệt của nhà cầm quyền Cộng sản Việt Nam, bởi vì họ không ghi danh, không chịu sự kiểm soát của những cái ban giáo hội, những cái ban trị sự cho nhà nước dựng lên. Một lần nữa, tôi xin cảm ơn quý vị đã lắng nghe tôi, và tôi hy vọng rằng quý vị sẽ nhấn chút thời gian của mình để ủng hộ những tín đồ Phật giáo Hòa Hảo trong nước đang bị bắt này. Xin cảm ơn, và xin cảm ơn anh Thắng. Xin cảm ơn BBSF đã tạo điều kiện cho tôi được nói chuyện. Xin cảm ơn.
Cảm ơn chị.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Ann Van. I'm with Boat People SOS here in Falls Church, Virginia. And so we're moving into the next segment of our program, and so I'd like to introduce our next speaker. We have Congressman Ted Poe, Texas 2nd District. Congressman Poe is a member of the House Judiciary and Foreign Affairs Committee. He is chair of the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, Subcommittee on Terrorism, Nonproliferation, and Trade. Congressman Poe represents a large number of Vietnamese American constituents in his district who have kept him informed of the dire human rights situation in Vietnam. In 2014, he adopted Pastor Duong Kim Khai, a prisoner of conscience, as part of the defending project of the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission. Pastor Khai has since been freed. Please welcome Congressman Poe.
Howdy.
Good morning.
Howdy.
That's what we say in Texas as a greeting. So, howdy.
Howdy.
Thank you. I am Ted Poe. I'm from Texas. In my other life, I used to be a judge for a long time, and I serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee. And human rights is one of my most important concerns and issues. Freedom of expression is a basic human right for everybody in the whole world. In the United States, we have the First Amendment that protects the ideas of freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom to petition the government. And just to be clear, the First Amendment of the United States is first because it is the most important one. And the first right mentioned in the First Amendment is the most basic of all human rights, the right of freedom to express your religion in any way you wish. And then next you see the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, the right to peaceably assemble. Governments cannot infringe on the right of freedom of speech. It cannot prevent us from practicing faith or assembling peacefully to protest. Not all countries live up to this basic human right commitment, and it is our duty to make sure that those rights are enforced not only in the United States, but in countries like Vietnam, where the people are persecuted. Your friends, your relatives are persecuted because they believe differently than the government will allow them to believe religiously. The communist government basically fails to believe in those rights for the citizens of the country. In fact, religious and political freedom are on the decline in Vietnam. New laws let the government punish anyone who wants to practice their religion, or speak out against the government. These laws have been criticized by human rights organizations, not just in the United States, but throughout the world. The Vietnamese government is using these new laws to crack down on citizens' basic freedoms, and the new round of arrests of Vietnamese citizens is proof that these rights are being denied. Human Rights Watch says that at least 112 prisoners of conscience are imprisoned in harsh conditions after unfair trials. The prisoners are not criminals. They committed no crimes. The government has committed the crimes. But they are advocates for human rights and social justice. These are pastors and priests simply because they are in jail simply because of their religious faith. Pastor Nguyen Quang Kinh has been in prison in Vietnam since 2011. What's his crime? Being a Christian. It should not be a crime anywhere in the world to be a Christian, but it is in Vietnam. In prison, and you know this, but many people in the world don't know it, Vietnamese prisons are a lot different than prisons in other countries. They are harsh. They are brutal. The prisoners are tortured every day. They are deprived of contact with family. And after 6 years of imprisonment for Pastor Nguyen, nothing has changed. Just this month we learned that his torture continues. That should outrage us, that a person is in jail for their Christian beliefs and government tortures that person because of it, denies the First Amendment right, the basic right of all people of freedom of expression of religion. Pastor Nguyen has been given food, and some of that food has pieces of glass in that food. And he's been beaten and he's been put in stocks. Those days of putting people in stocks should have ended hundreds of years ago in the world. But not in Vietnam. It's still happening, and only because people have religious beliefs and the government does not like it. The Vietnamese government does not stop with torture. Of course, they intimidate him, tell him lies about his family, and of course the lies are completely untrue, but it's to break him down. It's not only physical torture, it's mental torture, and they're doing everything. Remember, Vietnam is still a communist nation, and communist countries still practice that. Even his wife has suffered for her faith. She was jailed while peacefully campaigning for religious freedoms. Last year she was. And they tortured and beat her and warned her to stop her work for human rights. That is the decision that people of faith have to make. Stop believing and practicing your faith, or you will be tortured. That's a tough thing for people to decide. And thanks to her and her husband, they don't stop preaching what they believe to be true. So even to this day, the government harasses her. The story of Pastor Nguyen and his wife is not unique to Vietnam. In Vietnam, stories of resistance for more than 100 other political and religious prisoners show us that the citizens of Vietnam, those people, want freedom, a basic human right. The two most important, the reason freedom of speech is an important right, a human right, is so that people can practice the two most important parts of freedom of speech: religious speech, political speech. Those are rights that we have because of the freedom of speech and expression. And it's important that we do what we can to make sure that the story that's taking place in Vietnam by the government is told as much as it can be. You know, the United States and Vietnam have deepened trade and security relations, but the United States needs to do a more active job of saying, we will trade with you, but you need to get your house in order when it comes to basic human rights. And maybe we should change our political and economic relationship with Vietnam until they start protecting the citizens of that country, the right to speak freely politically and the right to speak freely on religious matters. It's real simple. Vietnam should free all political and religious prisoners. Not just a few of them, but all of them. Clear the jails of political prisoners and religious prisoners. And we also must pressure, and I'm talking about the United States, to stop the harassment and abuse of people who aren't in jail, but are practicing in their country, in Vietnam, human rights. You know, I feel very strongly about what I'm about to tell you. You know, a former judge, born in the USA. I didn't pick where I got to be born, but I was born here, and I have always honored our amendments to the U.S. Constitution, because it shouldn't matter whether you're born in the United States, whether you came to the United States, and made the good choice, as some of you, to come to Texas. Yes. Everybody has basic human rights. And I've said that phrase, human rights, several times. Because the Almighty gave everybody, wherever they are in the world, whether it's in Vietnam or Africa or the United States, human right of freedom of speech to practice and preach religious faith and practice and preach political beliefs. That's a human right. So, thank you for being here. Congress needs to be more active and be active with the government of Vietnam, that communist nation, to treat their citizens like all humans, wherever they are, should be treated. And that's just the way it is. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So next I would like to introduce Virginia Bennett. Virginia Bennett is currently Acting Assistant Secretary and Principal Deputy of the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. She became Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary on July 14, 2014. From 2011 to 2014, she served as Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy in Athens, Greece. Prior to that, she served as Deputy Executive Secretary of the U.S. Department of State under Secretary Clinton. She also served as Executive Assistant and Chief of Staff to Deputy Secretary of State John Negroponte. Last month, Ms. Bennett led the U.S. delegation to Hanoi for the 21st U.S.-Vietnam Human Rights Dialogue.
relatively speaking, pairs. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Trong, for having me here today. I have really enjoyed the opportunity to engage with all of the range of issues that are so critical to the future of Vietnam's prosperity and to its stability. To be here at sort of the 7th annual Vietnam Advocacy Day it's a particular honor, and I thank you for that. And thank you, of course, as well to Boat People SOS for making this gathering possible. I sort of feel like Representative Poe said many of the things that I would also endorse. He is a steadfast advocate for human rights, in particular for religious freedom around the world. The value of religious freedom to the United States goes back, as he noted, to our origins. It's at the very foundation of what makes the United States the United States. And I too frequently invoke the First Amendment as sort of the guiding principle for why we do what we do in the executive branch and engaging in foreign policy to deepen and promote respect for these values globally. So I know that today there are hundreds of advocates, yourselves included, who have gathered here in Washington to talk about human rights with your representatives in Congress. And I think that your engagement here in the United States is really emblematic of something Secretary of State Tillerson recently said. The American people's commitment to human rights and championing of people the world over is embedded in all we do. And I think that that's quite right. Within the State Department, we have a wide range of tools that are at our disposal to advance the agenda of freedom. There's bilateral diplomacy, there's multilateral engagement in the UN and other multilateral institutions. We have foreign assistance resources, we have public outreach, and we use these tools all around the world, including in Vietnam. Our view is that a Vietnam that supports the free flow of information, supports a broad range of civil society actors, and upholds the rule of law will be better able to address the global challenges of the 21st century. Any country, really, that does so is going to be better equipped to achieve internal stability and to mitigate external conflict and to promote economic prosperity of their own people and their broader region. So progress on human rights remains crucial for our bilateral relationship to reach its fullest potential. We remain committed to integrating human rights into every component of this bilateral relationship. As my introducer noted, I recently was in Vietnam for the 21st of our annual Human Rights Dialogues. And leading our delegation there was a real privilege. In addition to bilateral meetings with the government, our delegation met with a very broad range of human rights defenders, with religious leaders, civil society representatives in both Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. And honestly, for us, representing the United States, these conversations are really critical to informing our understanding of the key issues at hand. Whether it's meeting with Pastor Chin's wife, for example, to talk about efforts to practice religion, whether it's meeting with activists who are central to the effort to improve labor rights, freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, association, all of these elements figure into these conversations. And while I think that there is certainly some progress in some areas which we acknowledge, there are still too many prisoners of conscience in Vietnam. Numbers down a bit from maybe, from 2013, approximately 160, to somewhere between, give or take 100. Some estimates are a bit higher, some are a bit lower today. So it's trending in a positive direction, but it's still too high. And we know that, and we say that. During the dialogue, I raised many, many specific prisoners by name. And I'm really hopeful, actually, that in the aftermath of that dialogue, we're going to see some modest progress in this regard soon. So that is something, a development that we are watching and working towards very, very closely. And so we hope we'll have good news to share. I know that my colleagues here in the Congress are following these developments quite closely as well. So, although we will acknowledge where Vietnam has taken steps to be more inclusive, greater protections in the civil code, for example, for persons with disabilities, for social inclusion for LGBTI individuals, and we welcome Vietnam's willingness to discuss with our experts the key laws that impact on human rights and protections. But another key piece of this agenda is religious freedom on the human rights agenda. And as Vice President Pence said recently, promoting and protecting religious freedom is a foreign policy priority of this administration. And that is, still very much a mixed picture. We were and we remain heavily involved in working with the government of Vietnam to improve its legal framework for regulations related to religion. We provided extensive feedback to the government during the drafting of the law on belief in religion. And Vietnam took some, but they did not take all of our recommendations. And we are deeply concerned still about restrictions on the freedoms of expression, association, and peaceful assembly. I urged the Vietnamese government to end the harassment and arrest of human rights defenders and peaceful activists. Peaceful dissent is a fundamental human right. And the increase in harassment and arrest of bloggers and other activists since early 2016 is unacceptable. And we believe very strongly that that hurts Vietnam's efforts to promote a stable and prosperous society. We talked at length about the importance of the free flow of information, both in terms of economic development and in terms of governance. Individuals have to have the opportunity to raise their frustrations and their grievances peacefully and to make a contribution to creative solutions to the country's problems. That's something that is so woven into the fabric of our country. And honestly, I just don't understand why that is resisted elsewhere. And so, in urging the government of Vietnam to enact better protections in this regard, we made some progress. I suppose one can say that the fact that we can have this kind of candid conversation is a step in the right direction. But it appears now that a number of these laws are on hold indefinitely, so we're going to continue our engagement at the most senior level at our embassy in Hanoi. We talked about labor rights, where we seek the promotion of internationally recognized core labor standards, including freedom of association and collective bargaining. Extending these rights will ensure that Vietnamese workers have the opportunity to pursue their interests, improve their standard of living, and contribute to inclusive economic growth in the country. So we will continue to urge Vietnam to allow the formation of independent units. If the government continues to work with its stakeholders and the International Labor Organization, we believe that the reforms to the labor law that we are seeking will help attract investment, will help support economic growth, and again, will contribute to Vietnam's longer-term prosperity. We're also working with the government of Vietnam on promoting the rights of persons with disabilities, including by seeking a voice at the table for disabled persons' organizations in Vietnam to engage their government. While I was in Vietnam, I had the opportunity to attend both Protestant, evangelical, and Catholic services. And I was really struck by both the robust attendance at these services and the dedication and the tenacity of all the religious leaders with whom I met. You know, while I heard from some religious groups that they have seen some improvements in their ability to practice freely in recent years. You know, I also heard from others that the government's attempts to control their practice and control their activities, and particularly the activities of unregistered religious and civil society groups, continues to be deeply troubling. So that is an area that we're going to have to keep working on. So for our part in the executive branch, I would just say that we will continue to raise our voice over specific areas of concern, specific cases of harassment, police abuse, death in custody on account of religious belief, and we will continue to urge Vietnamese officials to address the long-standing land disputes and seizures concerning land owned or used by religious groups. That's an area where we've got to see some progress. And you know, we continue to insist that religious communities should not be subjected to registration requirements simply to practice their religious beliefs. And you know, the new law on freedom of religion and belief and its implementation decrees, which are still a work in progress, on which we're providing feedback, should avoid burdensome registration. They should protect and provide space for those who choose not to register. So this conversation is a long way from over, and I think this year's Human Rights Dialogue was the prelude to you know, sort of a series of high-level meetings that we are holding with Vietnam throughout this year. You don't need me to tell you that the Vietnamese Prime Minister was here in late May. Human rights, including religious freedom, were a part of the discussions with the Prime Minister during that visit. And consultations with human rights activists and representatives of the Vietnamese American community in advance of the visit was really indispensable, I think, to informing our engagement with the Prime Minister. So I just want to extend my thanks to all of those of you for staying engaged and for giving us your input, because that is how we are most effective with our interlocutors. You know, making concrete both the outcomes of this year's Human Rights Dialogue and the sentiments that were embodied in the joint statement following the Prime Minister's and President's meeting will be particularly important, I think, in light of the President's travel to Vietnam later this year for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, leaders meeting, which will be in November. So we're going to continue to stress that progress on human rights is crucial for our relationship to reach its fullest potential. We want to acknowledge where there have been steps forward, as well as steps backwards, and we are going to continue to remain committed to integrating human rights and into every component of our bilateral relationship and our engagement with the government. These are the values, we sort of end where we began. These are the values upon which this country was founded, and these are the values for which we all stand today. So that will continue to be the central tenet of what we do. Thank you.
You are being watched by 906 people from Vietnam. Yeah,
906?
906.
It's very intimidating.
And one of them is going to ask you a very prompt and succinct question.
Great.
And you met him in Vietnam. Mr.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, the Acting Assistant Secretary of State of Virginia. It's my honor to talk with you again after our first meeting in Hanoi 1 month ago.
Yes.
I'm sure that your visit to our country last month, you understand that there's an ongoing intensified Vietnamese government crackdown against local political conditions, human rights advocates, also social activists and independent bloggers. Today, Vietnam sent its human rights defender Nguyen Nguyen Quỳnh to 10 years in prison, and the happy sentence to silence other activists. My question is, how the US to deal with increasing crackdown in Vietnam, and how the US implement Global Magnitsky Act, and how our defenders can do to support to support you in to provide the information about Vietnam human rights situation. Yeah.
Thank you, and it's nice to see you again. I'm not sure where I should be looking, actually. First, we also received reports this morning of the conviction in a Vietnamese court of our 2017 International Women of Courage awardee and peaceful blogger known as Mother Mushroom. I think it's better if I do the vernacular and not attempt the Vietnamese in a crowd of Vietnamese Americans. Where she was sentenced to 10 years in prison under what we assess to be a vague charge of conducting propaganda against the state. So we call on Vietnam to release Mother Mushroom and all prisoners of conscience immediately, and to allow all individuals in Vietnam to express their views freely and peacefully without fear of retribution. I highlighted, I think, some of the positive steps that we have seen. But as you noted, there has been an increasing trend since early 2016, which we have found troubling. And we did, note that reversal of that trend will be quite critical to, helping our bilateral relationship reach its fullest potential. I alluded to some of the tools that we have at our disposal in terms of diplomacy and foreign assistance and whatnot. And another very important tool that we do have at our disposal is the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act, which authorizes the president to impose financial sanctions and visa restrictions on foreign persons in response to certain violations of human rights and acts of corruption. So this is a global authority, and I think the global reach of this authority, in combination with a judicious selection of individuals and entities, sends a very powerful signal that the United States continues to seek an end to impunity with respect to human rights violations and significant acts of corruption. So we are working with our colleagues in the Department of Treasury to collect credible information from the public pursuant to the law via a wide range of our interactions. I would just highlight that there is we have a mailbox at the Department of State. It's Global Magnitsky at state.gov. And all of our embassies are also tasked and charged with collecting this information. We will treat the information confidentially and potentially applicable for all potential nominations under Global Magnitsky for sanctions. So this internal and deliberative process is, there's a high evidentiary standard, and it's very deliberate, but I want to encourage everyone to share with us all of the information that we may bring into the mix to take appropriate action against those who violate human rights standards. So with that, I hope I have answered the question. And I would just like to thank you again for having me here and for the opportunity to speak to you all. Thank you.
Now, talking about the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act, I'd like to introduce to you the person who introduced it in the House, Chairman Christopher Smith.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tong. And first, let me just say a few opening comments about Dr. Tong. I've known Dr. Tong for over 30 years. I've been in Congress 37. I wish I knew the other 7. But I just want to say how much respect I, my staff, and many members of Congress both sides of the aisle have for him. We've had in my subcommittee at least 18 congressional hearings on human rights in Vietnam. Dr. Tong was the headliner at our most recent one, held on May 25th, right before Prime Minister Phuc came to the United States. And as usual, his testimony was incisive, accurate, and that has been the hallmark of what he has done all these years. He pointed out that the idea of renunciation of faith has continued in many, many ways, almost unabated, particularly against the Montagnard, and pointed out that one of the pastors who got a 5-year prison sentence, 1,000 of his people have signed statements to abandon the church. So the pressure is egregious, it's overwhelming, it's pervasive. The Vietnamese government has not changed, and I think we are fooling ourselves in the extreme if we think that they are. Religion and religious belief continues, faith continues and thrives despite the persecution. I think there's fault to go all around on the American side. I think George W. Bush made a serious mistake when he lifted country of particular concern in anticipation of the bilateral agreement. All of the deliverables that we were told were going to happen, and I did go to Vietnam on one of many human rights trips during that time period, met with about 60 plus pastors and others from Hue, Ho Chi Minh City to Hanoi, and it almost became like the list of the people who, after the bilateral agreement was consummated, they were arrested, harassed, and the registration, which communist dictatorships all over the world, and I broke my eye teeth on the Soviet Union and on the Romanian use of registration under Nicholas Ceausescu, is all about control. It's not about knowing who, it's about controlling whatever that faith denomination happens to be, whether it be Unified Buddhist Church or any Christian sect. That is the way that they take control and use the military, the security apparatus, especially the security apparatus, to control those entities. So we have to be completely clear about that. We are moving in the wrong direction, not the right direction, and I think it is naive in the extreme to think otherwise. My hope would be that this administration would re-establish the CPC designation immediately. The evidence absolutely supports it, and it's about time that it be done so. When Tran Thi Hung gets beaten, as Dr. Tong and so many others have so eloquently spoken to, especially at this hearing, after meeting with Rabbi Saperstein, our ambassador at large, an outstanding leader and a great man in his own right, simply because she wanted to talk to him about her husband who had been imprisoned, that just rips off the facade of legitimacy by this government. They'll talk nice, diplomatic niceties in cocktail settings, and even in human rights dialogues, they'll be seemingly listening. It's all in the deeds. The proof is in the deeds. Win Van Dai, I met with him in 2005. When I was in Hanoi meeting with him, all the people except one that were supposed to come and meet with us were arrested, temporarily detained, so that meeting could not take place. Now he is suffering, as we all know, a great human rights lawyer because of his advocacy for fundamentally recognized human rights, to which Vietnam has pledged itself to at the United Nations, starting with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Global Magnitsky Act, I was the House sponsor. It had become law as part of the NDAA, which is our national defense, as an amendment to it. But I also, and I hope people will start paying more attention at state and elsewhere, to the new Religious Freedom Act, named after Frank Wolf, one of the greatest champions of human rights and religious freedom I have ever known. Well, in 1998, there was great pushback. I held all the hearings of my committee by the Department of State. They didn't want it. They testified against almost every bit of it, and I'll never forget that. And yet we got it passed into law, and again, IRFA, going back to 1998. Well, the new law does a great increase in what we have as tools, as a number of tools, to make sure that religious freedom is very robustly part of the U.S. dialogue and response to any country in the world. And I have to tell you, that and the Magnitsky Act was the template for both of those, was from a law I wrote in the year 2004 called the Belarus Democracy Act, which holds dictatorships to accountable by having designated persons lists that will make them inadmissible to the United States, denial of visa, and also goes after their ability to do their deals here in the United States. Our new bill, we named it after the great champion Frank Wolf, creates a designated persons list for individuals who commit egregious violations of religious freedom. And again, there's a parallel here with Magnitsky. They strengthen each other, and hopefully the ambassador at large and state, starting with Rex Tillerson, and all the other departments of state will take this seriously and start chronicling names, putting those names down. Yeah, there needs to be the ability to, there needs to be that ability to make sure that due process, that you don't falsely name somebody. But again, when somebody is torturing you and when people are being arrested, the bully boys are often known, and they need to be surfaced, and the diaspora and the people who are listening in Vietnam need to be chronicling and compiling those kinds of lists. There's also, it creates a comprehensive prisoners list. You know, I chair the China Commission, and Rex Tillerson did a great job this week in designating China as a Tier 3 egregious violator when it comes to sex and labor trafficking. I have tried to get the administration both previous administrations, to do so. They did it 1 year under Obama because of what we call an automatic downgrade, and quickly elevated them despite the evidence of egregious human trafficking. Well, Vietnam, and again, Dr. Tong has spoken so eloquently to this with facts and figures and data and anecdotal stories, continues its terrible, despicable record on human trafficking, and they were wrongly, in my opinion, named Tier 2, which suggests that they're taking serious action to combat trafficking. They've done some things, but it's, even as the report says, in certain areas it's certainly mixed, and I think it's worse than mixed. Again, getting back to the new, and we will hand out a press release to all of you that goes through some of these inclusions of what's in the bill, but it integrates freedom of religion into every aspect of U.S. foreign policy. When we were doing the hearings back in 1998, it was appalling, and Frank Wolf and I found this when we traveled all over the world. My first trip on religious freedom was to the Soviet Union in 1982 on behalf of Soviet Jews. There's no doubt that Reagan cared about those issues, but religious freedom under every administration had always been somewhere in the back, not something that was in the forefront. So this would integrate it. It requires a special advisor for religious freedom at the National Security Council. You know, we're going to be providing any aid to Vietnam as a hedge against hegemony by the Chinese, because there is a great fear there, as we all know. We got to insist on human rights conditionality. So I think this whole of government approach, that if you're going to violate religious freedom, there's a penalty. And there's an economic penalty, and there's also an economic penalty in terms of what we're willing to do to further assist you. And right now, the jury's not just out. Vietnam is going, as Dr. Tong said at our hearing, in the wrong direction. There are many, many other parts of this bill. I hope you'll take a look at it. But I think it will only be realized its potential if individuals keep making up lists. You know, Freedom House puts Vietnam at 7 in terms of freedom. It's not free. Human Rights Watch said at our hearing that it's abysmal. You know, so there's a concurrence out there among many organizations and individuals that we are being, I think, naive in the extreme if we think that they are trending in the right direction. They are not. So finally, just let me say, Magnitsky also offers the opportunity, and hopefully it's an engraved invitation to everyone listening, and the word will go out. Get those names to state. Make sure that, you know, these people are held to accountable, because that's the only way. I can tell you, Lukashenko, who's the dictator in Belarus, on one trip to Minsk, and I'll be in Minsk again next week, of all things, but he is the president and is often called the last dictator, was called it for a while, of Europe. We were at a meeting with 11 members of the House and Senate with him in Minsk a few years ago, and he pointed to me and said, "You're public enemy number 1. It was because of the Belarus Democracy Act. He and those who run that government can't do business in the way they used to do it. They can't get visas, and it applies to approximately 200 people. To their credit, the European Union followed suit. They have a very similar list of people that are now inadmissible and cannot do business as well. So personalizing the economic sanctions, the visa sanctioning, makes a difference. When you hit the whole government in the whole country, that's a tool. But when you really focus in on individuals and single them out, that makes a huge difference. Let me finally just say, Ambassador Joseph Reese was chief of staff for our subcommittee for years. When the boat people who were in High Island and many other places, about 40,000 in total, Joseph and Dr. Tong made sure that our subcommittee held 4 hearings, one of them closed, 3 of them open, because the Clinton administration wanted to send everybody back. They said they were ruled out as refugees, screened out, and the process was horrific. We found out that people with guns were standing there asking questions. You get one answer wrong and you're dismissed. They were intimidated. It was not like it wasn't a fair process. So we offered an amendment, and Joseph was the crafter of that amendment. And some 20,000 people who otherwise would have been sent back to Vietnam to a very, very precarious future came here under the Rover program. We did have some very good allies in the Clinton administration, and we had even more of those, both sides of the aisle, Congress too, who were on the other side. I offered an amendment on the floor that no U.S. funds can be used to assist in forced repatriation. To everyone's shock, it passed. And that was a pivot point. But Joseph, I want to thank him for his extraordinary work on human rights in general, from trafficking, religious freedom. When he went on to become a member of the State Department and then our first ambassador to East Timor, it was a great loss for our subcommittee. But he made, and Joseph and Dr. Tong, all the difference in the world. So thank you. You're making a difference. But get those lists.
Okay, next up we have Ambassador Jackie Wolcott, who is one of the most patient people I've met today. Ambassador Wolcott was appointed to the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. From February 2010 through December 2015, she served as their executive director. Prior to joining, she had a long career in government executive positions, serving as special envoy for nuclear nonproliferation and U.S. ambassador to the UN Security Council. She also was ambassador and United States permanent representative to the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva, Switzerland, and special representative of the President of the United States for their non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. These are very long names. She served as U.S. Governor to the International Atomic Energy Agency Board of Governors, working on issues relating to Iran's and North Korea's nuclear weapons programs. Ambassador Wolcott worked in the Senate and House for 9 years. Please come up.
Well, good. I think it's morning still. Good morning, everyone. I am so sorry I have to be speaker after Chris Smith, but here I am. It's really great to be here every year. I've been here not as a speaker, but as a USERV Executive Director. And I'm very grateful today to be here representing the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. I want to thank Dr. Tong, of course, for all you do. We really appreciate and value our relationship with you and Boat People SOS, the whole team. Also, I wanted to, and Chris Smith took my wind away, but I wanted to mention my former colleague at the State Department, Ambassador Joseph Reese, who we've worked together, and it's always great to work further with you. And just to mention a few of the members, I know you have several coming and going today, but the 4 that jump to mind from a USERV perspective, meaning they're really synonymous with human rights, are Chris Smith, Ed Royce, Ted Poe, and Alan Lowenthal. And I know you're all grateful to hear from them today. 10 years ago, just a little over 10 years ago, the State Department removed Vietnam from its country of particular concern list. USCIRF disagreed then, and we disagree with that decision now. Our last report, which you can find out on the table, by the way, there's USCIRF material I hope you'll all pick up outside the door. Our last report that came out about 2 months ago, which is required by statute of Congress, and it goes to the Congress, the President, and the Secretary of State, still calls for Vietnam to be designated a country of particular concern, as we have done every year since 2002. I would agree with some of what I heard earlier about some positive signs that we have seen in Vietnam, but it still meets the CPC standard, and particularly in some provinces and rural areas. Unfortunately, Vietnam deserves to be a CPC, and until the government improves its freedom conditions, religious freedom conditions, and respect for international human rights standards, USCIRF will continue to call for its designation. As you may have noticed, those who follow this issue carefully, my colleague who I work well with in the State Department, who spoke earlier, she did not mention the CPC as a tool, as far as I heard. And it's a very important tool, and we think it made such a difference when it was applied to Vietnam for the 2 years it was applied. So we will continue to push for that. Also, the government needs to carefully implement the new law on belief in religion. The law is certainly not perfect. It's a far cry from international human rights standards. But I will say a very bad initial draft was slightly improved by engagement with the United States, as Virginia mentioned, with religious organizations, with NGOs, and other international experts. And Vietnam did take some inputs. USCIRF, I want to mention, does try to look for positives as well as negatives. We unfortunately spend a lot of time on the most difficult countries. But, you know, Vietnam is a challenge. And we also monitor how governments, including Vietnam, implement their laws, policies, and practices affecting religious communities. My hope is that next year, when you all come to town, which I think is an amazing thing, and it's such a expression of democracy, which I really admire your work here, that I or one of my colleagues will be able to stand here and say, over the past year, the government of Vietnam has done good work in implementing a good law. I think that clearly the jury is still out there. I had the unfortunate, I want to talk about my prisoner of conscience, and you've heard about him already, but I'm going to have to repeat it because I think it's a very important issue, and as important as some of the others that have been discussed. The U.S. government should stress in every interaction with the Vietnamese government how important to our bilateral relationship these prisoners are and how important their release would be. My prisoner, and I call him mine, and I will explain why, is Pastor Win Con Chen and his wife, Tran Thi Han, who were also adopted by Representative Lowenthal as part of the Defending Freedom Project. And that project, as you probably know, was started a few years back with USCIRF, Amnesty International, and the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission. It pairs congressmen with prisoners to hold governments accountable and, of course, try to help free the prisoners. Also, local organizations in Vietnam have worked on behalf of Pastor Chin and his wife, and I wanted to mention a few. The Vietnamese Coalition Against Torture, the Association for Support of Victims of Torture, and the Multi-Faith Roundtable in Vietnam. I'm honored to have adopted them as part of USCIRF's new project called Religious Prisoners of Conscience Project. I know all of you have been advocating on behalf of Pastor Chin and his wife, and I know we all will continue to do so until he's released and his wife and family are allowed to freely practice their faith. But There are also countless others still in need of justice from the government of Vietnam, which harasses, intimidates, detains, imprisons, and tortures innocent people. And as bad or possibly worse is the government standing by while local authorities and thugs carry out horrible human rights abuses. These are especially vulnerable communities that are facing this include the Khmer Krom Buddhists, the independent Wahao Buddhists, the Cao Dai followers, the Montagnard Christians, and others. And in addition to redesignating Vietnam as a CPC and raising prisoner cases, the U.S. must use the new tools, some of which have been mentioned, like the Global we all have trouble with that, Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act, which of course will hold Vietnamese government officials and other agency officials accountable for the human rights abuses and their violations of freedom of religion or belief. USERF's job really is to encourage our government to do the right thing on religious freedom, and I can promise you we will continue to press the State Department and to work with members of Congress on behalf of religious freedom in Vietnam, including the release of all these prisoners. And we won't stop until all of them are released. I want to thank you all for your continuing advocacy and your faithfulness to this cause, and also bless you in your work. Thank you.
Okay, so we have one final speaker, Congressman Alan Lowenthal, California 47th District. Congressman Lowenthal is co-chair of the Vietnam Caucus, a group of members of Congress concerned about human rights issues in Vietnam. Congressman Lowenthal has been a vocal critic of Vietnam's communist regime for its persecution against people of faith, human rights defenders, and independent bloggers and journalists. In 2014, he adopted Prisoner of Conscience Minh Dong under the Defending Freedom Project. Dong was soon released from prison. Congressman Lowenthal currently adopts the case of imprisoned Lutheran pastor Nguyen Quang Trinh and has worked relentlessly for his release.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again, and I want to thank Dr. Tang and both People SOS, and everyone else for being here and for your great advocacy and standing up for religious freedom, for the people of Vietnam to have human rights, which we know are being denied today. You know, as the co-chair of the Vietnam Congressional Caucus with Congressman Smith, who we just heard, who's been a champion and a leader, and also with Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, again, I want to thank you for raising your voices, educating members of Congress on the human rights situation in Vietnam. It's so critically important that we come together and speak to each other and share with each other, because those of us in the room know that the situation for human rights in Vietnam is dire. No matter what we've heard during my time in Congress, and I came in the election in 2012, and so in 2013 was my first year in the Congress. And although there's been much lip service, especially when Vietnam wanted to participate in the TPP and really began to try to say that they were really making great improvements, I have not seen any improvements on the part of the Vietnamese government, how it treats its citizens regarding religious freedom. And the government's record is really especially troubling. We've all heard today, and under the leadership of Dr. Tang, some of these cases. I adopted also Pastor Nguyen Quang Trinh it was actually my second prisoner of conscience that I adopted, and I did that during my first term in 2013-14 year. Who has been a Lutheran minister who has faced tremendous mistreatment in prison, and as we all know, his wife recently was detained and beaten by security forces after she met with the U.S. Ambassador for International Religious Freedom. But I'm also, that's not the only thing, I was tremendously offended after, on a bipartisan way, multiple letters from myself and other members of Congress asking the Vietnamese government not to demolish the Lien Tree temple in Saigon, which was a place of worship, a religious center for the Unified Buddhist Church, and there were multiple requests from members of Congress that this would be a sign of really wanting to reach out and to demonstrate that they really were making changes and greater religious freedom. Unfortunately, they did not listen. We recently also saw the death of Win Hu Tan, who is in custody by local security officials in the Vinh Long province under extremely suspicious circumstances. He was a Wahao Buddhist follower, a minority sect in Vietnam, and we are very troubled and have not received any response yet from the Vietnamese government on this thing. We sent a letter, Congressman Correa, myself, Lofgren, asking the Vietnamese government to enter into a full investigation of the circumstances of this death. So, as I think has been pointed out, I think the United States government should be doing more to support religious freedom in Vietnam. I'm disappointed, but it's not late. I'm still disappointed, though, that the administration has not really identified the promotion of human rights as the critical issue around the world in terms of U.S. foreign policy. That must be the hallmark of our policy. That's what differentiates the United States from other countries, is our desire, if you want to be with us, that you live up to basic principles of human rights and religious freedom. And I'm going to continue to fight for that, and I would like to see the administration take a stronger stand. And as was pointed out, one of the first ways we can deal with that is to immediately put Vietnam back on the list of countries of particular concern, the CPC list, for religious freedoms, as was recommended to us and advocated by the U.S. Commission for International Religious Freedom, and they have recommended this for many years to put Vietnam back. There's also, we can apply it was pointed out, the global Magnitsky. It is tough to say Magnitsky sometimes. It is. It just doesn't flow. It's the global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act, and the importance of applying that is that we can target specific individuals who we know who have been responsible for violating human rights activities in Vietnam, and this gives us the ability to target those very specific. And also, right now, if the Vietnamese government wants to establish better relationships, wants to have bilateral trade, wants to come and visit the United States, they should immediately release all prisoners of conscience. They have got to stand up and demonstrate that they really want to move forward, want to join the nations of the world in promoting human rights, which they have not done so far. So I want to thank everyone for inviting me. I want to thank you I'm glad to be here again. And I hope that we can amplify the message that you're giving to us and that we're all sharing today to all members of Congress. It is critically important that my colleagues on both sides of the aisle understand that we have to make human rights in Vietnam a priority for this Congress. If we really want to have our gateway to the Pacific, it's critically important that at this moment that we reaffirm our commitment to human rights and religious freedom in Vietnam. Thank you.